Hello, everyone, and welcome to a great episode of Boss Talks. This is episode 70. Our guest today is Kara Cermak. She's with Real Manage on the HOA side of the business, which is my first guest from HOA, which I'm super excited about and hope is the first of many more to come. But she is a great person to hear from. She has great experience. She hails out of Chicago area in Illinois. She comes from a company that was kind of a family business in the HOA world. They grew it up to be very healthy and successful, and then sold it off to Real Manage. And so she's been with them for a few years. She stuck around, done some learning and development, leading the charge in that way, and then now is over the Illinois market and just leading the people in that way there as well. So there's a lot of great things we're going to talk about today, learning more about the HOA world. A lot of my listeners may or may not have a lot of familiarity with that particular side of the business when it comes to residential real estate, but it will be sure to be an interesting conversation. So we'll get right into it. But first, I'm your host, Evan Happel. I'm with Community Boss, and we have some great solutions when it comes to manage your physical spaces, whether that's your parking, your amenities, or mapping. We got you covered. We'll even generate some revenue and just make it a better experience for residents and owners of communities. So, but that's enough of that. Let's get Kara to the show. Kara, thank you so much for being here.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much for being guest number one on my HOA business.
Woohoo.
That's right.
I'm ready.
Yes. Thank you so much. Because we dabble in both sides. Predominantly in residential real estate is what we kind of do our business. We're probably like 40% HOA, 60% multifamily. So it's nothing to, stub your nose at. 40% is a good chunk of business. So we needed some representation when it comes to the show. So thank you so much again for being here.
You bet. I'm glad to be the first one.
Yeah. And again, maybe you'll be the catalyst for more. I have a few more lined up, but I know you've got connections. I'm sure we'll be able to dive into a few more.
Absolutely.
Through you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's important because it is housing, but it's different. And it's community management, but it's different. So there is nuance and all the things, and there's interesting things that go on that side of the business that we're definitely going to get into. But before we do, I have 3 questions I always ask my guests.
Okay.
My first question is, when it comes to building community in more of a social sense, how do you go about that?
Woo! That is not a quick answer right there. Building community, that's actually the underbelly of everything we do. What we do as community association management companies, managers, assistants, all of these people, at the end of the day, we're looking to build community. We're looking for neighbors to have a sense of community with one another. Even if, your demographics are such that, you've got 2 people working all the time, they probably don't have a ton of time for social events and so forth. What we do is to find the things that interest that community. You can have 2 communities that look exactly the same, and they could be 2 miles apart, and they will be a totally different feel to them. They want different things in their communities. That's part of what really good community managers do, is figure out what they want, what they need, so that when we need to solve problems together, we know each other right from the beginning.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for answering that. And then when it comes to your personal life, how do you go about it?
How do I build community?
Yeah.
Whew.
Or do you have time for that?
Yeah, I have to say, right at this particular moment, most community association managers have the same answer. It is budget season. And in the community association world, that involves your volunteer board of directors. There are so many processes and procedures, and especially here in Illinois, we're sort of at the forefront of, the legislation. Once it hits Illinois, Florida, and California, it's probably coming to a state near you. But we really have a lot of hoops to jump through, which are great because we want to be sure the volunteer board understands everything. But it is a complicated process. So right at the moment, I am lucky to be hanging out with my family. So that's where I'm at.
Well, that's good. It's a good place probably to prioritize first, for sure.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's good. But yeah, what you're saying is completely true. Like managers on that side of the business, they aren't managing one community. They almost more function as if they're more like a regional, because they're like they have multiple communities and then board of directors for the communities that they deal with.
Yeah, so the boards can choose what it is they want. If they want their manager to be dedicated to them, they can do that. But needless to say, that costs more money.
Sure.
Typically, you have portfolio management, which means that they share in the cost with these other communities. They get economies of scale, and of course, then they share the manager's time.
Right.
This is a sticky issue because boards, it's very hard to say, well, you're up, your time is up for this week. We can't do anything more for you. So it's very difficult to get boards to understand that, but that's the reality of it. You share a manager, economies of scale, you pay less money, and we all need to work together.
Right. Right. But then they have expectations as if they're going to have more of your time.
Yeah. And the thing is, they're volunteer board members. So it's incumbent upon us to educate them to whatever degree that we can. And keeping in mind, there's some sociology to the fact that these are their homes. This is where they raise their families. This is their sanctuary. And what our job is to tell you things you can't do in your home, or say, hey, we need to replace the roof this year. Here's how much money it's going to cost out of your reserves. And so we have sticky situations compounded by the fact that they live there.
Right.
And so they have sort of a caveman. And actually, I have actually read about it. There's sort of a caveman mentality, it's their home. Stay out of it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into more of that for sure.
Okay.
But my next question, thanks for answering the first one. My next question is, when it comes to hospitality, having people over, making them feel special, what is it that you would make for a meal?
Ooh. I am the queen of appetizers.
Okay.
So no matter whether it's at my house, my sister's, wherever we're going to be having an event, especially around the holidays, I'm the queen of putting out so many appetizers that you don't even want to eat the meal by the time it comes around. Shrimp cocktail, artichoke dip. So I love appetizers.
Delicious.
Yes.
I do too. And then you're right. I don't necessarily need to eat the meal, but then I do eat the meal.
And we do too. We do too. But honestly, you're not even hungry for it by that point.
Right.
And you would think, why don't I cut down on it? I don't know. I can't.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Exactly. That's what the holidays are for.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for answering. And then third question, final question. When it comes to your caffeinated beverage of choice, which could be coffee, doesn't have to be coffee, what is your go-to?
So I don't drink any pop because I don't want to waste my calories on pop. And you guys probably don't call it pop. You probably call it soda. That's so Illinois. But anyway, coffee all day, every day. So yeah, it's coffee.
Just black, nothing in it.
No, little cream.
No frou-frou. Okay.
Little cream, and that's
so. What's your when you're getting crazy and having a beverage like coffee, for instance? What would your favorite drink be?
If I'm not having coffee?
Well, no, having coffee, but maybe you're frou-frouing it up a little bit.
I see.
Yeah.
I don't frou-frou my coffee. It doesn't work together for me. So I'm a White Claw girl. Honestly, we should talk to White Claw. Yeah, I'm a White Claw girl. Less calories, delicious.
Got it.
Yeah.
Not so much caffeine, more beverage of social choice.
Yeah, I drink enough coffee. By the end of the day, I definitely don't need more caffeine.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I started off hyper anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for answering.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to get right into it and really get into the fact that, I mean, you've been around the industry for a while, 33 plus years.
Yeah.
And did you live and breathe it? Because your family kind of has just been in it, right? So more than 33 years, probably.
Yeah, it is more than 33 years. Yes, I came from a family of divorce, and my mom was a single mom. My dad lived in another state, and she started our community management company. And my sister and I were at the office with my mom every weekend, because we have to keep in mind we didn't have like they had computers that were like would take up a room. So you couldn't work from home. That wasn't even a possibility. So we were at the office with my mom every weekend. We played games like Roof Leak and Pipe Burst. And back then was when the copiers went like this, and we would copy our butts. We would literally sit on the copier. So anyway, I have been doing this since I can remember. And once it gets in your blood, you can't get away from it.
Yeah. No, that's
Long time.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you grew up in it. And when it came to choosing career of choice, was it your first? Did you just go right into it, or did you kind of like no way, and then you ended up here?
Yeah. So I went and I got my degree in operations management, and I was really good at it, which is very different. It's manufacturing based, a lot of calculations, a lot of stats. I loved it. And that was my plan, because back then, 1991, there were not a lot of women in operations management. So it was kind of a really great thing. I was going to pop in there. And then we had an issue with the family business, and my mom called me. Her partner was leaving the company, and she was leaving with some communities, and so I said, "Forget it. I'm going to come there. I'm going to save the business with you," and that's what we did. So
Wow.
yeah, I had intended to get away from it, but I don't even know why I pretended. I was always going to be here.
Right. It was in your blood. It was
Yep.
in your blood. And
Yep.
then so you ran that, and that, what was that business called?
Rowell Incorporated.
Okay. Is that like your family name or?
No, so very interesting. The company was actually founded by two men,
Okay.
and they quickly realized they had zero desire to do this for a living. Their names were Roger Peterson and Denny Powell. So Row from Roger and Well from Powell. And my mom was their first employee coming off a divorce, and it wasn't very long before she bought the business and it was ours.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. That was 1973.
Wow.
So this year, if Rowell was still around, it would have been our 50th anniversary.
Oh, that's amazing.
Isn't it? That's pretty great.
So how long you guys been a part of Real Manage?
Almost 6 years.
Okay.
I really, it's first of all, in the community association industry, so much is happening with technology, and our margins are not so hot. So it was really the sort of thing where I wanted to be able to really compete. I wanted the very best, and Real Manage has the very best software platform, and they have a heart. They have heart, and that's where I decided to go, because of the heart more than anything else. And I wanted to be in charge of learning and development, because I'm a volunteer instructor for the Community Associations Institute, and it turns out I love it. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're seeing the comments. So if you click comments on the right side.
Ooh, I better do that. Hold on. All right. No, I wasn't. It is
So I don't know
not
if
for
you
the
know.
faint of heart.
Yeah. Do you happen to know Megan? I mean, she is on multi-family side predominantly. I don't think HOA at all, but she's out of Michigan.
Oh, Michigan. I
Yeah.
don't think I've met her directly, but I have to say I'm more of a face person than a
Okay.
name person. So Megan, if I met you, I'm sorry that I don't remember your name, but you're right. My mom is a badass.
Well, and she speaks like she's in a similar situation. She actually, um, she has a family business.
Mhm.
She bought her mom's business recently, and it's property management and some other things as well. Um, so kind of a similar ish story, really.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And I will say, most people in my industry, they fell into it. It's not, people aren't going to school going, yes, I'm going to be a community association manager, and I'm going to get yelled at for a living. And
Yeah.
I kid, but not really.
Yeah.
That's actually our goal, is to start getting it into colleges so that people can choose this for a career. So that's,
Right.
we're at sort of a crossroads with the old people like me trying to get new blood into the industry.
Right. Well, and I imagine, I mean, Real Manage is a fairly large company, and there's probably somewhat of a consolidation happening.
There is. Yeah, we're the third largest community management company in the country.
Hmm.
And there is a bit of a consolidation going on. And I think it's generational. I also think it's technology wanting to compete, uh, you know, as best we can. And the large companies are sort of doing a little bit better with the margin situation. They're figuring it out because the smaller companies, it's difficult to, I don't know why, but it's difficult to
Yeah.
charge for the services that they are asking for above and beyond. But these larger management companies have figured it out a bit better than at least I was able to. So
Yeah. They can share a lot more. Yeah.
I see. I'm going to get yelled at for a living is the quote of the year. Woo-hoo, I got a lot more where that's coming from, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, McKenna, for making that a quote. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I would say that's a transference. That quote plays in both worlds for sure.
yeah. I mean, like I say, the community management, even if you're doing everything right, you're getting yelled at by
Yeah.
someone. But
Sure.
if you make a mistake, woohoo!
I
So
know. Yeah.
you have to be really confident. That's really what it boils down to. Confidence
Yeah.
will serve you amazingly in this industry. That's it, really, because
Yeah.
people go, "Ooh, she knows what
Oh,
she's talking about."
because people smell like fear.
Okay, honestly, they smell chum in the water, and I was just saying this to my daughters this weekend, and my other daughter said, "And I'm a great white," so they
Nice.
smell chum in the water. You have to be confident.
That's right. Yeah. And you're from Illinois. I can imagine you have a little bit of the Chicago in you through and through.
Yeah, anybody that is from this area, we are very different than the rest of the country. I When I first sold Real Managed, Chris and Chris told me that Illinois was their HR nightmare. And that's really the truth, because we're just going to tell it like it is. There might be profanity in there, and that's just what it is. But we're very different. Our board members as well are really highly educated. We make a big point of trying to educate them, and double-edged sword, so people walking around thinking they know everything about the industry, when in fact, we do this every day. So we do
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But on the flip side, it's wonderful to have them educated, but it creates a situation where we're a bit more high maintenance in this state.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's really funny because you guys are a big part of the big chunk of the business, aren't you?
What do you mean?
Like number of communities up in Chicago versus other
So,
areas.
yeah. Oh, God. So, anywhere in this area, no one's building anything that is not in a community association. Um, Municipalities love it because we'll pay for services that everyone else is paying, out of separately, sometimes in our taxes. And it's actually a huge issue for community associations, because sometimes they're paying things out of their taxes, and then the community association is paying for them as well. But if you can imagine, municipalities, they don't have time to worry about the abandoned vehicle in the front yard of this home. Much better to have a community association so we can take the heat on it. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
of
we
course.
have,
Pass the
right.
buck.
Yep. So we have community associations everywhere. We have more business than any of us can deal with. So we're a close knit industry, at least in Illinois. As a result, even with my competition, I
Okay.
can say most of them I love.
Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, I think that's kind of true. In multifamily too, there's so much transference where people, they work here, and then in their case, something gets bought, and then they move to the next company, and
Yeah.
just a lot of moving. So, you better be friends with everybody because you might work for them.
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of turnover in the industry, and again, we're in growing pains right now. It's the industry is incredibly young. The Community Associations Institute was formed in 1973, the same year Rowell was formed.
Okay.
So we're in a different era right now, both generationally with community managers, but we also are seeing infrastructure problems we've never seen before,
Hmm.
because we're only getting to that age now as community
Right.
associations.
Right. Yeah. And that's where, oh yeah, we didn't want to put money in the reserve fund. We didn't want to, plan for that maintenance or that
Yeah.
new roof or whatever. And then they're like, oh, now we have to pay like $100,000. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. And even if they are putting money in the reserves, which is really, you just have to,
Right.
um, boards are reticent to make really big ticket items decisions. It just takes them a long time to make decisions that cost so much money. And unfortunately, with the infrastructure problems we're seeing now, sometimes they're taking too long and something
Mm.
goes wrong. So,
Right, right. Which is, yeah, yeah. And I was just talking to somebody on HOA side yesterday about how in Florida, for instance, there's like task force being made, and they're trying to like really go after that because obviously more recently a pretty terrible thing happened in Florida.
yeah,
So,
terrible.
and that kind of sets a tone for the rest of the country. It's like, okay, we got to pay attention to this stuff.
Yep, yep. So, yeah, from the city of Chicago, they had some bricks and rocks actually fall off the facade of one of the high rises there
Oh
onto the
wow.
sidewalk. So dangerous. So
Oh wow.
now they have laws in place to check your facade with an engineer every couple of years, and it's expensive,
Yeah.
but of course we're learning from our mistakes.
Yeah. Oh man, that would have been terrible that if
Yeah,
that actually hit somebody.
yeah, no
Oh
kidding.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that's good it didn't. And I can imagine being that it gets so cold there that there's so much expanding and contracting. If something gets in between the facade, it's gonna cause it to dislodge. And I
Yep.
mean,
We have a lot of expansion and contraction, just like you said, a lot of it, which is why, community associations, and really multifamily, they need to get frequent reserve studies where they have an independent consultant check the buildings and make sure, that they address anything that is dangerous.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that's something I've learned. I've been in my role for 3 years, and I've learned a lot more about the HOA world as time has gone on.
Mhm.
And just the HOA needing reserve studies, reserve funds, and all these things. I didn't even know what those things were.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And you know what? Why would you really? Um,
yeah,
And I mean, and this is the same thing with people that move into, the first time they're moving into a community association. They're like, why are you charging me this much? Why are you putting this off to the side? Why? And so it's an educational process.
right. All the time.
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
100% all the
yeah,
time.
yeah. As we like to say here in our world, HOA all day. We like, it's all about it because you're setting up times to meet with boards. That means probably after hours and things
Yep.
like that. So it's just kind of a different animal when it comes to sales and everything. So
And that's part of the reason that we struggle a little bit with attracting new talent, because, as I said, getting yelled at for a living. But really, you got to think about the fact that, their evening meetings mean you're not likely eating dinner with your family. And so we have to be very careful about the portfolios so that we're able to get some work-life balance, because back in the day there was no work-life balance. I didn't eat dinner with my kids for like the first 6 years of their lives. So we don't want to do that to people anymore.
right. Yeah, that's tough. That is a nuance of the industry that is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. And so that's why you wouldn't want to load somebody up with like, I don't know, 10 communities, and it's like they have to be at meetings every month or something. And
Yeah. Well, they definitely will have meetings every month. 10 isn't that big of a number. I know it feels like a
really,
big number, but what you do is you make sure the portfolio has some HOAs where you manage only their monument and maybe the trees on their berm around the community. And they'll have less meetings and less things that you need to worry about. And so you need to have a nice mix of communities. Sometimes you have financial only communities where the amount the community manager is doing is just very limited. You just have to be really wise. Most of our Illinois managers have roughly 8. But like I say, depending on the portfolio load, they go up to 10. And there's others. When I teach classes throughout the country, I hear people say, I have 20 communities. And, oh, but that's what's happening, because you're trying to make a
reduce
profit.
cost. Yeah.
Right. And I think people in the industry, or homeowners and volunteer boards, this is a for-profit industry. And so they forget that we have to factor those things in there as well. We don't want to go out of business.
Right. We can't serve you if we don't.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, that's tough. That's super tough.
Yeah.
That part of the business, like when you're spread between 20 communities and they have an expectation that you're going to do a certain amount of work, is just, I can't even imagine how much you're just feeling pulled all the time in different directions.
Yeah, and as leadership, we just have to continually educate these boards, because as the community managers, they take enough heat. We don't need to. They need our help.
Right.
Bottom line.
Yeah. Well, I know that you're the right person for the job that you're in right now, and I know things are only going to get better and better for you guys. So
Absolutely.
that's it's going to be fun to see that when you guys continue to grow. Because, like I say, I wonder what the future holds for just HOA management in general. I know, just hearing from the larger companies, it seems like there's, again, just smaller companies getting more and more absorbed into each one, and
Right.
it's at the end of the day, it's like keeping up. It's hard to keep up. So
Yeah. It's hard. The mom and pops, especially that have been around for a really long time, we're not charging for the extras, if you will. And so, these larger companies have got it down where it's a little easier to know whether you're over serving a client.
yeah,
A little easier. It's still a really big problem.
sure,
Someone that is barely, they're barely paying anything because they're a smaller community, which is understandable. But many smaller communities think they're large communities, and so
right,
it's a balance to try and make sure we're not over serving.
yeah, no, yeah. I feel like you need software for that, and maybe you have it, but
We have proprietary software that's pretty amazing, but even then, it's not like an attorney where they're I talk to you, here's the times and all of that. It's more of, here's how much you pay us monthly, and we're going to take care of these things. But there's all they people have unrealistic expectations sometimes. So
Right. Yeah, they're always going to try and get more.
yeah,
Absolutely.
human nature.
Yep. It's very true.
Yeah.
Well, kind of tied to this topic is just conflict management. It's something that you brought up when we first talked. And honestly, all I can remember is I laughed a lot about it because you brought up some pretty interesting things. And so I just want to hear your take on conflict management, especially when it comes to communities and boards and all the interesting nuances when it comes to managing HOAs.
Okay, well, conflict management is one of the biggest parts of what we do for a living. And I am constantly teaching about this. I'll start off by saying that I have the firm belief that if we can figure out how to work together in community associations, that we can build our politics from the ground up. So people that are willing to work together, maybe they'll be aldermen, maybe they'll be a mayor, maybe they'll move on to the state legislators, all the way up to federal. Right now, we're doing it sort of the opposite way. And what's happening in community associations is everybody's on edge, just like everywhere else, by the way. It's you can't escape it, right? People are just a little crazy right now in the last few years. And,
Right.
when you consider all the things we've been through, it's understandable. But when you take it to a community association level, and again, the whole aspect of it being their sanctuary, where they're raising their families, and then you add societal pressures, it's really created a lot of conflict right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, our job is to do whatever we can to get people on level footing. So if you've got, as an example, you've got a resident coming to a meeting and they're angry, you're going to not only prepare the board by making sure they have all of this, conversations, whatever, letters that we've received, and make sure they have everything so they can have a conversation. But, things like when that resident walks into the meeting, I'm going to give them a copy of the agenda. I'm going to say, here's when we take audience participation. I've already given the board all of the information that we talked about yesterday. Is there anything I can help you with at the beginning before the meeting starts? It is very hard to be irrational with someone who is helping you. It is not impossible, I must say. It is not impossible to be rude to someone who's helping you, but it is a lot harder because at the end of the day, we want to arrive at a conclusion that works for everybody involved. We're not going to always do that, but I want to be able to answer someone's questions where there is conflict, have them understand the reason we're saying no, and then you can move on. They're not going to be happy necessarily, but they're going to at least understand what happened. Taking the emotion out of it to whatever degree we can, because we have heightened emotions in community associations. So there's just all these tips and tricks. You might, if you have a board that is arguing amongst themselves, which is also a thing, you want to do things like introduce a code of conduct in advance before you have problems within the board, so that people understand what's expected of them and how we deal with conflict. Everyone's on the same page with that. Whatever degree you can also inform the homeowners, that's great too. And so there's all these ways to try to get to a place where people at least can see the reasons why decisions are made.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can only imagine the breadth of different reasons for conflict.
Yes.
What are like the most common maybe slash most humorous slash ridiculous things you've dealt with?
So, I will say before I say something funny, a lot of times that homeowner that will not stop, emailing you or calling you, they might be lonely. So it's important for us to understand that we don't know what's happening in their lives. So empathy, people can feel whether you have actual empathy or whether you're just going through the motions. So we always want to consider why someone might be contacting us that much. They might be lonely. And not that
Right.
that's okay, that you're their sort of source of conversation, but it is what it is. That
Totally.
you know so I always think of things like that. Empathy is a big deal. But all the reasons for conflict, oh my god. I had one community where um the person upstairs, they had one person above, 2 stories,
Hmm.
and the person downstairs had made them mad. And so the guy upstairs was dropping bowling balls on the floor, just to bother the person downstairs. And so, you can imagine, first of all, how am I to prove that they're dropping a bowling ball on the floor? It's happening at night. It's not an easy thing to record. So, and by the way, that person ended up being on the board for, like, the person upstairs, the bowling ball person.
Was on the
Um,
board.
well, yeah, afterwards, he joined the board. He was on the board for like 15 years, no kidding. Um, and I hilariously, I was teaching a class for CAI at their conference, so big event. And I told this story, and he was in the audience. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I just told that story. So, you always have to be careful. You never know,
Oh, no.
who's going to be in the audience. But yeah,
He's,
people do.
oh, what's his name? I think he's in. No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
no, he's not. He's passed away, so I'm
Okay.
safe there.
You
But
know that we're good here. Okay.
yeah, exactly. So that story is safe. People will do just the craziest things because they're upset with one another. And
Mhm.
that is really our job, is to take it down a notch, to see that people, like, oh, and I'll even say that, hey guys, we need to take this down a notch. Should we talk about this later? Do we need some more preparation? Because people do crazy things to upset one another.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and they probably have different viewpoints in life. And so, politically or whatever, and we're at
Politically,
a powder keg moment
culturally,
in life
right,
right now.
right. So just think about it. If you have a demographic that is just wide ranging, even trying to find social events that appeal to everyone is incredibly difficult. But you're going to have the person that might be 70 years old. They have 100% different concerns than the, person who's 40.
Hmm.
You have situations where literally people buy a condo, they're on the second floor, no problem. They have a child, and toddlers run around. That's what they do.
Right.
And you have the person downstairs saying, I can't sleep. They have their child's running around all the time. How do you address that?
I know.
I can't send a letter to tell them that their child can't run around.
Get
So
thicker padding in the.
honestly, a lot of these condos, they're built a long time ago. They didn't have the technology we have now for
Yeah.
additional sound barriers. And
Right.
there's so much they didn't consider. So, let's say 70s, everyone didn't have their own car. So you didn't have parking problems. But now, you have a kid in college, and you have another one that's 17, and you have two, parents. That's 4 cars.
Hmm.
And these communities did not contemplate 4 cars. So it is a constant fight, constant. And,
Right.
it's one of those things that it is a limited resource. There's only so much that we can do. Even if you contemplate adding additional guest parking, everyone says, not in my backyard. I don't want to
Right.
look at that. So it's a constant problem. Things like that developers just didn't think about back when they built these places.
Absolutely. I mean, that's literally why we became a company.
And exactly, because I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to sort of sell extra parking tickets in these communities so that you can control the amount of vehicles in your lots. People do crazy things,
Hmm.
hit one another's cars, key each other's cars. It's just crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of our founders lived in a condo community, was on the board. The the most common conflict and topic of conversation was parking,
Yep.
and it was around guest parking. And so he was like, "Well, I'm pretty sure I could build a solution."
Yeah,
And so
opportunity.
and so he did.
Yeah, the other big thing in community associations is pets. It is dogs.
Hmm.
And of course, people love their dogs. End of story. So you have problems with people that just don't pick up after their pets. And actually, in a conflict management particular story, I had a homeowner who sent me an email, and it was a really long email. And she told me this story in a hilarious way. She said, I came home from work. I cracked open a beer. I went out to my patio, sitting back, so excited to be chilling out. And I look, and there is dog feces right next to my patio. And so she, in this letter, she's like, that's ridiculous. I don't own a dog. I can't even relax on my patio. So anyway, she was very witty. So I responded and said, I love your wit. Okay, what if you founded a committee to figure out how we can solve this problem? Maybe we have 3 non-pet owners and 4 pet owners, and you guys get together and figure out, how do we solve this?
There you
And
go.
she said yes. And so that particular community, what they did was they had a pet parade. They had and they had they gave away shirts and little bracelets that said we love our pets. And so how does that solve the problem? It turns a problem into something positive, so people can see, what, there's a really great side of this. And then
Right.
they had committee meetings, they sent out articles. So you really can turn something negative into something positive by just thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, and get stakeholders from both sides to come together and come up with a solution.
And it works. It really
Yep.
works.
Yep. Yeah, it's getting to know people and then just like having getting past conflict and getting to like, okay, you're a person, I'm a person, we both live here. There is common ground to some degree. We can get past things, you
Right.
know.
You just have
So,
to figure out solutions. And you know what?
yeah.
They're constantly, so there's companies now that will, of course, for a while, pick up the whatever the people have left behind. However, it costs money. People don't want to pay that, right?
Yeah.
Now they have these great dog stations where a service will come out, empty the garbage where people have put the waste, have new bags there. It's really quite amazing.
Hmm.
And yes, pets, parking, and people, you're 100% right, McKenna. And this pit bull thing, pit bulls are fabulous. So people need to lay off the pit bull. Uh,
Well, honestly, every dog has the tendency to nip or whatever. It's about training them
yeah,
and being a good owner.
they just have a bad rap, but they are
Hmm.
actually
Yeah,
love.
because they kind of sometimes they get owned by the wrong people.
Right. Oh yeah. It
Yeah, who
absolutely
want them to be macho and aggressive.
scary. And the thing is, even the nice ones, they sound scary, but they're not.
Yeah,
So yeah, I completely relate to all of that.
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit that. I mean, conflict it's a thing for all areas of life, but when it comes to HOAs, I can only imagine there's a tendency to be almost like a mediator and babysitter at times.
Honestly, we have a ton of people in the industry that used to be social workers. I mean, and you're halfway there, man. All you need to learn is the community association world. But if you successfully mediate conflict, that's the key to the kingdom right there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That is a nuance of, when you compare 1-to-1.
Right. Because they own it. They
Right.
own it. When you're dealing with, an apartment life, first of all, the people,
one owner or maybe a few, but
right. You're dealing with business people typically. So it's a different animal. And people in community associations, they own that home. So they're like, no, I'm not doing that. And so you have to mediate.
Yeah. Yeah, that is an interesting dynamic.
Very much.
I literally have a say in this.
Yes, 100%. Well, and what's funny, you hear homeowners say a lot, how can you do that without my consent? And you didn't ask me my opinion. And community associations are run just like the rest of our governmental agencies are run. You have an annual meeting where you elect a bunch of representatives to make decisions on your behalf.
Right.
So if you are a homeowner, that is when you get to exercise your right. There's very few things once you seat that board that they have to come to you for. So, just remember to participate.
And they can go to meetings, right?
Oh, 100. In Illinois, we have massive legislation. We can barely make any decisions outside of an open meeting. Yeah. So, 100% there. And now it's a beautiful thing. You can very often join virtually, even if there's a live meeting happening. So we're really able to reach out to more homeowners now.
Yeah. Definitely a lot of little things to be, figuring out, and we deal with that to a degree, because really, I mean, when it comes to multifamily, it's different because like we interface with the property manager, but with HOA, it's more that we're interfacing with the board, and then you're also a supplier in a sense, just like us. I mean, there's like you're a manager, but it's like you're their customer as well.
So the very best setup, the other way, but the very best is that you're communicating with the manager. Yeah. So what happens is when the volunteer boards step in and they're doing the communicating, they expect us to be able to solve problems and answer questions that we might, if you're handling it on your own, your management company should be the center of communications, and then we communicate and make decisions out here as a team. But when it goes through individual board members, that's where you get confusion and problems. And as long as we're, if you have a volunteer board member that really wants to be involved in the day-to-day, we can do that, but we need to do that together.
Yeah. It's interesting how many people from boards we get reaching out to us versus it coming through the property management company. Or community management, and then coming to us that way. We start with board members quite frequently.
I know. And it's one of these things that I'm constantly trying to teach people, because of course it makes sense. If someone else is doing all the talking on these day-to-day, items, then we don't know the answer. We don't know what you've just done. We don't. And it puts us in a precarious position because we can't properly answer questions. In addition, because board members should be making decisions in an open meeting, they run the risk that they're making decisions outside of what the board has authorized. And we always need to make sure that everyone's on the same page about what's happening with all of our vendors and all of our projects.
Yeah, that is actually a weird nuance. They a lot of times can't meet individually with us. We have to figure out a time where the entire board can be on the call.
Right.
which, creates a whole nother.
Trust me, I'm well aware. I'm well aware. And I got to tell you, back in the day using typewriters, we had less communication and no smartphones. In fact, everything was attached to the wall. But people didn't have these unrealistic expectations. I mean, the number of emails we get is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So it's really, we're all adjusting in the industry to everything new that's happening. You've got board members texting you non-emergency items in the middle of the night. It's just, it's one of those things where we're all figuring out, what the line is. Where is the line?
Right.
So we know when we've crossed it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, there is one more important thing that I want to cover, because I know it's actually something that's really important to you. And I kind of phrased it as paying it forward.
That's what we call it.
You created a foundation with some other people called Celebrating All That Is Feminine.
Yes.
So can you kind of explain as to like why that started and what exactly you guys are doing?
Sure. So I was a participant in Landmark Education, which is an international company that is training leaders, for lack of a better description. But the very essence of Landmark is that it teaches you how to communicate better, and it teaches you how to get out of your own head and your own circumstances and give back to other people that have circumstances that don't even approach your concerns. So anyway, it's an all female family over here, right? My dad participated, but I got a sister, I got a mom, the three of us together. It and this industry, by the way, a lot of females in this industry. So in any event, what I did was I got in touch with my professional friends, and we formed Celebrating All That Is Feminine. And basically what we do is we throw fundraisers for already established not nonprofits. So for instance, we have an annual baby shower for veterans, female veterans that have come back, and maybe they don't even have a home. They don't have anybody to support them, and they're pregnant. So we have an annual fundraiser for a baby shower for them. And when I say an annual fundraiser, we give them car seats and big ticket items and make them baskets. So that's one of our things. And then we have a pay it forward event, one event per year. And we find new beneficiaries each year. This year we provided money, and we actually were able to give almost $11,000. And the beneficiary is called ElderWorks. And what they do is they provide services to seniors, and it's all at no charge. So, and for any of you, if you are younger, you do not realize the amount of work it will be to take care of your parents. Mark my words, you don't realize it. So in any event, that was a PSA. ElderWorks, they do all of this for free. They have seniors come visit them, call them all the time. And so we just gave them a nice big check to keep going with those free services. So we pick a new beneficiary every year. We had one in the area here, sex trafficking. And what they were doing was taking, women out of that situation. They created a home for them and, sort of took them out of that life and figured out how to get them into, normal society, given all of the trauma. So we do something new every year.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks for doing that. I mean, that's the biggest thing with a nonprofit is getting funding, getting the resources. So for you guys to be able to take some of that burden off of some of those organizations, I'm sure is very much appreciated.
Yeah, we do a silent auction and raffle, And we like to say, hey, if you're going to go out and have a couple of drinks, why not go out and have a couple of drinks with us and support a really great charity?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's our 15-year anniversary in 2024, which is crazy. But I
Wow.
will tell you, the very busiest people are the ones that give back, because you need to get out of your own head. You know, your circumstances. Listen, I got a lot going on in my life, but these people have a lot more going on in their lives,
Yeah.
and giving back is really important.
Yeah. And when you have a lot going on and then just stress, like
Yes.
compounding it,
Yep.
because you don't know if you can find a place to live or,
Yeah.
get the resources you need. And yeah. And then it creates that stressful environment for kids and everything else. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And someone who has been sex trafficked. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Whatever we can do for these people. And the bonus is that you're teaching your children that it's also important to give back, that everything doesn't revolve around our family, that
Hmm.
there's so much more happening in the world.
Right. It's true. Well, thank you again for all you guys are doing with that. That's really
Of
great.
course.
And
We love it.
I want to just also thank you for being guest number 70 here on Boss Talks. And again, kicking it off with my HOAs. It took way too long to get an HOA person on the show. 70 is a
Agreed.
big number.
Yeah.
So I again am hopeful that that's going to be a trend upward, that we'll get more. But I know that there's so much you're doing in the industry and for CAI and teaching and all the things, and that you've gotten awards and been in it just so long. So
Yeah.
I'm
Long
just
time.
thankful that you're here, that you've given some of your knowledge to my listeners. And I hope to stay in contact and continue this relationship. But thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you for having me, Evan. I really appreciate it. And I will share this far and wide, and you'll get more community managers, or all facets of the industry for sure.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone that was watching and participated. I appreciate the comments. And if you want to be a member or well, I guess, yes, a member of the Boss family, the Boss Talks family, just reach out to me. I am a open platform when it comes to elevating all the bosses in, well, we'll say residential housing in
Yeah.
general. And
Uh-huh.
so if you want to be on the show, share your passions and your leadership style or whatever it is that you have on your heart and mind, I'd love to have you on the show. So reach out and let me know. But thanks for everybody for watching. It's been
Yeah.
another
Thanks,
episode of Boss
everybody.
Talks. See you guys
Thank
later.
you. Bye-bye.